I recommend, making sure your children know where you are and why. Don't just tell them that you have to go to work. Let them know about the impact and the difference that you're trying to make in this world, because we're trying to raise them in an era where it's so important to do what you love, follow what you love, be passionate about that.
Welcome to Empowerista, a show dedicated to helping you show up and be seen as an entrepreneur. I'm your host, Alex Worley, the CEO of Empowerista, an award-winning producer and national TV host, seen on platforms like Entrepreneur.com, Amazon Prime, and Business Rockstars. These are the tips and truths to amplify your influence and income. My guest today is Reena B. Patel, a renowned parenting expert, author, TV correspondent, licensed educational psychologist, and board-certified behavior analyst. For more than 20 years, Patel has worked with families and children, supporting all aspects of education and positive wellness. Today, her expertise reaches the masses through her books and media appearances. Reena has been seen giving parenting tips on platforms like CNN, Huffington Post, AOL, and KTLA. During our chat, we discuss how to become a media personality and balance parenthood with entrepreneurship. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to dive into your journey because you're a really good example of somebody who has a really strong expertise and business. You're a psychologist with clients, and then just recently you took your business public, which is something a lot of entrepreneurs aspire to do, to create a personal brand, to be able to represent their message on TV and in the media. So take me back to that time, since it was recent, that you decided, I really want to take this message at scale.
It's a great question, because it was only about a year ago, January, where I decided to just take it to a larger scale. And many of us, especially women, we want that. A lot of the services that we provide, I know for me, it's helping. I'm helping people. I was a psychologist. My overall philosophy and real legacy is helping women and families and parents mentally with their mental health and making sure we are raising children the best that they can be. And so I had established and written a couple of books, and there were children's books based on working in my own practice, knowing that I had limited resources in a particular area. I wanted to create stories that resonated with youngsters, but then had tips at the end of the books that parents could really try, and not just parents, but educators, other specialists in the field. And so I'd created those books, got picked up by a great publishing company, Kind Eye Publishing, and we were getting ready I wanted to write that third book in the series, and a few people in my field had mentioned well, how are you going to really market this? What are you going to do? Yes, it's there on Amazon. Yes, Barnes & Noble's online has it, but how are you going to make this impactful? Why? Because I had a dream of having all of these books in every single school in the U.S. And I was like, well, how do I do that? I'm just based here in San Diego. I'm a clinical, practitioner. And that's where many people really told me and guided me, really close-knit network of friends who said, maybe you need to figure out a way to market this. Maybe you need to hire a public relations department. That's where you start. Because I was struggling going door to door with local news and media outlets. And yes, I would get a few people I knew to help me get it established and put it into schools, but I couldn't get the word out on how important it was at an early age to help our children develop that kind of concrete coping mechanism. And so what I decided to do is sign with, after doing some research, and you do have to do that research, because at the end of the day, you need to find the right fit for you. You shouldn't just do a Google search and look for a marketing team that may work for someone else. It needs to be the right fit for you. And I was
And are you referring specifically to an agency? So you were looking for a PR marketing agency to help you get the word out. And yes, to your point, different agencies specialize in different businesses. So to really get an agency that specializes in solopreneurs who want to be the face of their brand and get out there was important. So yeah, how did you find yours?
So I was lucky enough through a friend who had was doing it for a different business reason, but I knew that first consultation, that first connection, I mean, you've got that instinct, go with your gut. I did try. There were a couple other interviews and meetings I had, but it's not about, and this is where I think it's such a myth, you're not trying to sell yourself to them. They're actually working for you, because at the end of the day, it's you as the product or your own product that you want that sells. And so it was right away I knew, just based on, Tracy Kaiser's her name, she's wonderful. And she basically said, she's like, my goal is to help women. And I want to help women because that's her own personal philosophy. And I knew right away, well, so here I am, a mom, a woman, who she's going to get what it is that I'm trying to do. And for me, because of my market, which it was families, and it is families, and my goal was to be able to market my books, but also establish me, because I had other things down the line that I wanted to be able to expose and share with the world, and basically continue to do what I do, but on a bigger platform.
Yeah. And I feel like, to your point, you have to go with that gut feeling, because I feel like you just feel it when someone gets you, or you're like, this person gets me, they understand what I'm about, how I can position myself in the market, and how I can really grow. So that's really great. So you started with books, you said, and that's an interesting thing. Like, when you decide that you want to develop your personal brand and reach the masses, where do you begin? And a lot of people begin with social media or blogging, because it's kind of a low-hanging fruit. It doesn't take, there's not a high barrier of entry. It doesn't take a lot of time to start using your voice and getting your message out there. That's a big feat to write a whole book. So how did you decide that that was the right route for you? And are you glad that you started with that big of a commitment?
Well, it just happened. I mean, I knew I wanted to write books because, like I said, I wanted to have something that was still in my field and provide it as a resource. And so I really wasn't looking at the media or digital world. I wasn't even thinking. In fact, a year ago, I didn't even have Instagram. I was the mom who was monitoring my own, teenagers' Instagram, and it's interesting.
And now you have thousands of followers.
Yes, now it's. Obviously, I had Facebook because that was more of just a family. I was using it, but I wasn't using it as a way to share my resources. And knowing that that is the best market, it's free, and you can get content out there. And one of the things I always tell families that I work with when we talk about social media is just make sure you're mindful, make sure what you put out there, it's a digital imprint. And so make sure what you share, it's not going to go away. So make sure it's meaningful, make sure it is going to make that difference. And I really looked at that and I said, wait, that's an avenue for me, not only to market, but to be able to share what I do on a bigger level. And
your book or social media or both?
Just both. I was able to promote my books on social media. I'm able to share my daily parenting insight and tips. And I have international followers who reach out to me from areas I've never even heard of and tell me that it's made such an impact, something so small, something I just put in a simple post about an everyday parenting tip that I tell anyone I have as clients, but I'm able to do it. And they can take it, and that it resonated with them, or they've implemented something and it's been effective. And so that's very rewarding in itself.
Yeah, I think there's something about a book where if you can write an entire book on a topic, you clearly are an expert. There's something intimate about physically holding a book. If someone gets through an entire book, they intimately know you and your philosophy. And similarly, your goal was to get the message out through media. And it's just clear to media that, okay, she wrote an entire book. She's clearly an expert. And then, of course, you can repurpose what's in your book for your social media. And like you said, you're reaching people all around the world. So I'm really curious, since you're new to social media, because a lot of people are in the social media game for a long time and just slowly seeing their following grow. But it seems like you've had a lot of success in a short period of time.
Right.
I would imagine having a specific topic of parenting, where people know what to come to you for, is helpful. What else do you think was helpful for you in growing your following?
I really took it. I mean, going back to my books, my friend Max really focused on children and anxiety. Winnie Winning Her Worries did. My friend Max talked about teaching children kindness and compassion. So my own nature, the way I practice anything that I do is really about positivity, positive parenting. So that was my stepping stone. So when I decided to go take the social platforms, I said, well, let's take this umbrella of being that positive parent. And so many of my followers are parents, and I don't want to just say mothers, a huge market of mothers, but I do have fathers, I do have educators who do follow me, I have clinicians, physicians, pediatricians, because we're all trying to promote the same, it just resonates with them. And because of my background, because I'm trained, I'm not just a mom influencer, because I have the credentials to back me up, there's a certain type of validity. And so career women out there just reflect and say, what is it that I can offer, but that's different from anyone else? Mm-hmm. And make sure you really you're educated, so make sure you really look to that and use that as a branch. I look at social media as just a branch of what I do. I'm an author, but that's just a branch of what I do.
It's a channel to share your message, and obviously you have to honor each medium and how to package that message.
Right, and stay within your scope. Don't try to do something you're not good at, because someone else is right there doing it. So you have to be able to kind of walk the walk, right? So if you promote something, or if you talk about, for example, on why it's important to for example, just go to the park and be with your kids. That's just something so basic. But be able to talk about the why behind it. Why is it important to be outside? Why is it important to use your senses to navigate the world? And so make sure that you're able to back up anything that you post or promote.
Yeah, what I'm hearing you say is that you really bring in the humanity and personability, because you can go Google, 5 facts about how to be a good parent. Yeah. There's a plethora of information out there about parenting, but they specifically want to come to Reena because you have a unique point of view and opinions, and your experiences being a mom yourself, and all of those human, personable things are why people are going to come to you.
Right, and I really do think that's why it's working for me. Mm-hmm. We can read all the parenting books that we want, but a lot of those authors are just tunneled, one-sided. We're all different. All our children have different temperaments, and what works for someone may not work for someone else. And so I do believe that what has really helped me grow so quickly is the fact that they see that I'm real, I'm authentic, I'm going to talk about my mistakes. In fact, I tell parents all the time, or just women and men in general, humans make mistakes, make them in front of your kids, because as children, we're not trying to create a perfect world. We want to teach people how to problem solve, right? Mm-hmm. And so I always tell parents, I tell teachers I meet, make mistakes in front of the children that are around you, because they need to see how you handle that situation, and that you are not perfect. And
that takes so much pressure off. Yeah. Because, as a recovering perfectionist, I can relate to. I think it's tempting to want to do it perfectly. And I can only imagine, as a parent, I'm not a parent yet, but I can only imagine that someone could be really hard on themselves if they made a mistake. But you're basically giving them permission that it's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. And in fact, it's good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You do need to make mistakes. Life it's about learning. The more we know and that we learn, we always know that we realize that there's so much more that we don't know. So I definitely encourage that, and I try every tip and technique or strategy that I ever suggest. I make it a point to let everyone know that I try it at home, I implement it at home, I do it with my own kids. So they know that it's not only empirically based, but myself as a parent, as a mom, I'm doing the same stuff at home too.
Yeah, so let's talk about you as a mom and speak to our mompreneurs or aspiring mompreneurs that are watching and listening. First of all, was entrepreneurship something that you sought out because you wanted the flexibility and work-life balance?
Yeah, I worked for many years, over 20, I would say 15, 20 years in a 9-to-5 type of setting. And the minute I became a licensed psychologist, I knew I wanted to go private practice because of the flexibility. And so fast forward to today, I am on a bigger platform. I still look at it as a private practitioner. I'm working my own business.
Absolutely.
But I'm doing it because I want to think outside. I think outside the box. I believe in creativity. And if you've got an idea, go with it and don't let anyone limit you. And because of that, and because of the fact that I am a mom and I want to be able to be there for my children, I was drawn to the flexibility. I was drawn to the fact that I can create my own hours. I'm able to say no when I need to. I make it a point. When I work, and when I'm with my kids, I'm with my kids, and be present. I really believe in structuring your life that way, and that's a big recommendation. Is if you are going to be that businesswoman, entrepreneur, make sure that you cut aside time. You can easily get swallowed up because there's always work to do with your own business, but make sure you make that time for yourself, and then you make that time obviously for your family.
Yeah, give us a little more insight into how you decide how much time, effort, et cetera, you're going to put into your work life versus your home life.
Well, you definitely have to establish mini goals. And yes, you've got this big goal of wanting to be successful, and you want to produce a product, or you want to for me, it was sell more books and increase my clients and be able to be out there in the media. And I've got my talk show now. And yes, that's all there. But it was important for me to look at, well, let's balance this out, because all of that is always going to be pulling at me, but so are my children. Mm-hmm. And so making sure I'm looking at them and seeing what their needs are. And I want to be available for their activities. I want to be there, on the weekends to be able to just hang out. Sometimes it's not always about being in your child's face. It's sometimes just being physically present and there, away from your emails, away from your phone, and just being with your spouse or significant other too. I mean, that's important as well as being part of the family, and checking in with them, making sure you're validating their concerns and what their day is like. And so the way I usually do it is I'm there for my kids. I'm the one who helps them get ready, get their things, get them out the door. But I'll spend about right after that, and after I've taken my own me time. I do take my tea and I sit there and I'm like, let me just sit and just process that time for myself. And it's so important. In fact, I always tell everyone, calendar that in. And that is for me every day, whether it's you're working out, you're going for a walk, or you just want to sit and listen to some music and have your tea or coffee. That is my alone time. And I spend about 30 minutes every day just doing that, an hour or so if you're going to work out, wherever it is. And then I decide to do my social media at that point. And that's it. That's when I'm going to do it. I'm going to finish it. I'm not going to check anything, get back to it till later in the day if need be, to respond to people who are asking questions, my followers, people, because engagement is so important. And then from there, I go to do my work. If I have clients, I want to make sure that I've calendared everything in, but you find that balance. And then make sure you have time to eat. I think many of us just we're workhorses and we forget that we're supposed to eat. So make sure you set time, but the eating shouldn't be while you're working. I really do believe in scheduling eating and being mindful and being that mindful eater and just enjoying that moment, because that's another break. And I have to drive around a lot. A lot of my clients are everywhere, but I also have virtual sessions and counseling and trainings that I do virtually, which is nice. I have a radio show, so that too I'm lucky enough to be able to do that where I'm at. And so I make sure to schedule those in when it makes sense and work away from my office and home when I need to. So you definitely have to be organized.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of moms say that once they become mothers, all of a sudden they become a lot more productive, because I can relate to not being a mom. I have a lot of time if I just want to scroll through Instagram or do this or do that, where it probably doesn't move the needle. I still try and be mindful of those things because I obviously want to be a productive entrepreneur as well. But I think that you're almost forced to be more productive when
you're efficient.
More people are accountable to you. Do you feel like that, where it sounds like you have things really calendared in, as you were saying, and there's not room for fluff?
No, I mean, you want to be efficient and you want to really think, what's a priority. And then really making sure that if you're doing something that for me and as a mom, I want to make sure my children are around. So my 13-year-old daughter loves to be in the kitchen. So I make sure she's with me when I'm prepping dinner. Let's talk about how is your day? What's going on? What do you want to do over the weekend? But she's there with me and we're making those quality moments. So it doesn't mean you put things aside. I mean, yes, we have to do domestic things. And again, it's just part of, I know for me, one of the things that I know I need to do, but it doesn't mean just because I'm a woman, I have to do it. My husband is right there doing it with me. I put those responsibilities on my children. They have to, have their own chores, why we're teaching kids responsibility. But it doesn't mean that we all have to be isolated when we're doing it. And so I always say, do what you can, but make sure your kids are around when you're doing it. And then you're you're very efficient. And then you're also checking in with them and having those conversations just so they know that you're present and you're around.
And I know off air we were talking about how mom guilt is a real thing that a lot of women, and I'm sure men, struggle with. Dad guilt sometimes too. And, specifically thinking about you chose to come up to LA from San Diego for 48 hours because it was the best choice for you and your goals and worked with your family. And a couple points you made that I'd love for you to elaborate on is, first of all, support system being huge, but secondly, having the perspective that you're actually being a really good example to your kids. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I really think the biggest cheerleaders in what I'm doing is my support system. My husband and my kids are right there with me saying you should do it because I did carry that guilt. I mean, you have to invest in yourself. And there are many times that I'm like, should I walk away from this? There are going to be weeks and there are going to be times where you're being pulled, one way with business that you're like, oh, I feel like I've had to miss some things. But it's the support that I get from my family and my kids and my husband's like, no, we understand why. We see how happy this makes you. We want you to succeed. And I really do think that is what keeps me from having that guilt because it is going to pop up. You are going to feel bad. I've got a little 5-year-old at home and I'm missing him and it's there. And I'm like, oh gosh, I wasn't there the past 2 nights to tuck him in because I've been working on these projects and doing interviews, but I know that he's taken care of and I know that he's content and I know he knows that I'm going to come back and we're going to spend some quality time together. I recommend, making sure your children know where you are and why. Don't just tell them that you have to go to work. Let them know about the impact and the difference that you're trying to make in this world because we're trying to raise them in an era where it's so important to do what you love, follow what you love, be passionate about that. And especially young women, I've got 2 daughters, I think it's important for them to see that and model what I do and that I don't have to stay home and I can create a business or I don't need to stay at a 9-to-5 job with someone above me telling me what to do. Yeah. I think that's so important.
Yeah, because the unfortunate reality is that there is more pressure on women right now to make it all work and more guilt associated with doing things that's in their best interest and growing their careers. But when you can shift that and not put the pressure on yourself and change that for future generations, and as you are showing your daughters that, no, you really can do it all. And I mean, obviously not without help, not without help, without a support system, but really showing them that their dreams matter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to teach children independence and autonomy as well, because we tend to hover. A lot of us as parents tend to hover over our kids and feel that we need to be there every second of the day. I think a lot of it is that we have so much access to everything that they're doing. And take a step back, teach them independence by not having to be there every second. You are there with them, but you don't have to physically be there. I tell parents all the time, new moms, I work with a lot of new mommies and dads, and my biggest recommendation is you go on a date night, get away, go see a movie. It's okay to leave your child with a taker or with a family member, because that's the best gift you can give them, is teaching them how to navigate and create that kind of confidence and not develop that separation, insecurity, or anxiety. And not only you're helping yourself, but you are helping your child.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, if people want to keep up with you, where can they follow you?
Follow me on Instagram for your daily parenting advice. I always say at Reena B. Patel. Definitely follow me. Look up Reena B. Patel on Twitter. I am also on Facebook. My television talk show, parentologytv.com with EverTalk. You can find it on Apple and Roku. And I talk about everyday parenting struggles and tips. And then I also have a Vesby channel. It's great. It's new. It's just like YouTube. I have interviews that I do with other experts in the field. All my parenting advice is always there too. And then if you want me for services, like I said, I'm virtual. Check out my website, www.reenabpatel.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Reena.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for today's show. If you're loving this podcast, don't forget to subscribe so we can meet again next week, same time, same place. Thank you so much for listening and have an amazing week.